let's recap what we have been doing. The introduction section, we got it that structurally, you can find 3 moves there. 1, 2, 3. And the first move is we situate the background. The second move is that consists 4 kinds, right? So when something is wrong, that kind of a gap. 4 kinds of gap. Or something is missing, or something is unclear, or everything is fine, you're just adding something new. These 4 kinds of gaps. We saw samples, exercises from the book. The third move is also called purpose statement, where we mention how we will occupy the gap. How shall we fill up this move 2 in our paper essay article? So that's the introduction section. Now, when we elaborate the introduction section with literature review, let's say, for instance, the kind of articles that you all submitted today morning, the first draft. So today we'll learn moves in literature review if we are separating our literature review from introduction. So let's assume that the introduction we learned, that's an individual entity. Now you are writing literature review as a separate section of your paper. You can also include that in introduction, by the way. So let's see if we have literature review as a separate section. I'll talk about 6 common steps that we find in a literature review in terms of its writing pattern. First of all, we mention our goal. That what topic we are reviewing or whatever we are targeting at. So we mention the goal in the beginning. The second, we'll see examples. Just let's get through the theory first, and then we'll see examples, and then we'll do some tasks the way we do in earlier classes. The second thing is we found some research materials, right? We found some research materials. So we are mentioning perhaps a summary statement, what kind of materials we found, before even mentioning all those or listing down all those materials, right? We give an idea, this is what is coming ahead. So there is a summary statement about our found research materials that is connected to the goal, to the topic. The third possible thing we can see is organizing leads. For instance, whatever we found, now how shall we organize it? How shall we organize our leads? Lead 1, 2, 3, 4, what shall we include in lead 1 as a paragraph, lead 2 as a next paragraph? So how shall we process that? So that's the next step. Now it can happen in various ways. We'll get there. It will branch out to several other moves now. So that's why I'll get there later. Okay? If you look into the slide, this is actually where I am right now. When I'm organizing these leads, whether in the form of summarization, explanation, paraphrasing, illustration, it could be in various ways. We'll get there in how many ways we can organize our leads. After that, we add our comments within this third step. It's not like we only stop by summarizing and paraphrasing, right? We call it synthesis. So we are providing comments. Now the comments can be a counterclaim. Again, we have to go back to yesterday's, last week's class. Comment can be a gap. Comment can be a counterclaim. Comment can be anything. So you're organizing your comments. So far, so good. We all are getting there, what you're saying? I'm still in the basic steps. So this might be a little tricky, but we'll get there. how shall I organize my leads? And while providing comments, yes, now these 3, 4, 5 are actually connected. It's not one by one, by the way. It's not like after 3 you go to the next step. It's not like that. It goes together because the way you'll organize will include your comments, and the way you comment will include either summarization, paraphrasing, explanation. You can shrink things, you can expand things, you can give examples or illustrations. That's also called illustrations. Now, when we summarize something, when something is very big and I have a little space to mention that, we summarize. When you pick a topic, a term, then you might expand it. That's paraphrasing. Not a whole paper. When you are summarizing, that means you're summarizing a whole concept, a bigger paper. But you're expanding, that means a small topic you're expanding. So that's these 3, 4, 5 steps, the most crucial step where we lose our flow. Usually, founding research materials and giving a summary statement, not a big deal. Mentioning your goal, what you're doing, not a big deal. What happens linguistically and expression-wise, you might lose track in this chaotic zone, because here many things combine together. It's a chaotic zone. You're organizing several leads and you might lose flow. And that's what we will practice today. Have we lost flow or not? We'll see a few examples and we'll work on it. The 6th is the research question, or the main purpose of this paper, or a unique conclusion. Not the conclusion you mentioned earlier, summarizing other existing research works. You have mentioned also earlier various conclusions of various papers that you incorporated. This is a unique conclusion, the final step. It's not the result, by the way, because we haven't gone to the methodology and results section yet. In the literature review, you are giving your final comment. So this 3, 4, 5 ends in 6. Giving your final comment, that is the paper about. That is the main research question your paper is addressing. So this conclusion that you have reached after embedding previous all existing materials, this is what you have finally reached into. So that's how we end basically literature review. Any questions so far? Shall we see an example? Then we might have questions. I would suggest open this in per user, but on my screen, I'll open the slide so that I can lead you to all these steps. This is the same example we performed 2-3 days ago, last week. Remember, it's in page 235. I picked this up so that we don't lose time by reading a new passage. Let's find out how this is organized with this theory by following this sample. Page 235, you all got there? Cool. Anyone who couldn't find it? In per user, if you go to this, I haven't created any new task in per user, so it's in this one. If you click here, it should open up. Then you type in the box, page 235, and it takes you to this task. And as far as I remember, we all read this passage, right? So we will not waste any time by reading it again. But I'll take you there step by step. For instance, whenever I'm mentioning sentences, sentence numbers, 1, sentence 10, sentence 15, I request you to look into your per user because we are having the slide on the screen, where I have also copy-pasted the sentences. Yet, per user will give you a bigger picture because you have the whole passage there. So let's see where we find the goal. And when you use this kind of vocabulary to understand why these sounds are characterized in this way, definitely this is a pronoun that is leading back to the previous sentence, like old to new progression, right? So a demonstrative adjective is used. And this means acoustic environment sounds that are unpleasant, considered unpleasant. So that's the topic. So the first two sentences we can say the goal is being set as a topic. This is the topic we are heading towards. Any confusion with the first two sentences? And the first step that I mentioned, where we talk about goal. Oh, good? Yeah? Cool. The next, I have read a few research materials. I have 5, 10, 23 for resource materials. Now, I'm providing a sum statement justifying the purpose of bringing all those previous existing research on board. Make sense? For example, interestingly, all of these have investigated. So now here we are not citing. Have you seen? Before citing individually all those research work, there is a sum statement. All of them, so there's a common ground that has been mentioned here, investigated scrapping sounds. So now you're narrowing down from the acoustic, environmental, unpleasant sound, narrowing down to scrapping sounds, particular category. So the second statement, where you have mentioned the found materials summary. What kind of materials we are talking about? All good? We got it here? It's sentence 3. Now the next. And the more we move on, you will see how beautifully, in a cohesive manner, this particular short passage is organized. Sentence 4, 6, and 15, what do we have there? We have now multiple resources. And the way this paper, this particular sample, organized the leads. Let's see, for this topic, there are 3 leads. First lead, sentence 4. And the lead is based on frequency. So they're citing someone of unpleasant sounds and scrapping sounds. The topic is frequency. Right? We all agree? Right? The next lead is not based on frequency. The next lead is, so let's say this is lead 1. Lead 2. Not frequency, but vestigial reasons. You all understand what is vestigial reason? Yeah, vestigial means part of our body that genetically we have carried out, but I'm not a science background, someone can explain better, but as far as I know, like wings of a chicken, they cannot fly, but they have the wings. We also have certain parts in our body that we do not use. That's called vestigial. Am I right? Those who are biology students, anyone? So that's called vestigial. So now it's a different lead. From frequency, the topic shifted to vestigial reasons that the author is trying to mention, and that's why we have several other citations as well. Okay? So vestigial. The third lead, visualization. Not I'll feel weird about listening a sound, but even if I see someone trying to make those kind of noises, and even if it's mute, I might feel weird. That's what the research is about. Make sense? So if you see someone visualizing, creating those scrapping sounds, so yet there could be some unpleasantness. That's what the author is trying to say. So it's visualization. So based on these 3 reasoning grounds, we see leads. Now between these leads, you can provide several comments, several illustrations, examples, counter arguments, whatever. That can go long. But what I'm saying, based on these 3 leads, the section is divided. Make sense? Yeah? So we got 3 leads. Now what we have next? How we understand the next part, not only citations, but also a little bit of comments included in those references. For instance, the next part, I won't say lead because it's part of the previous leads. So when you have talked about frequency, now you're connecting this, particularly this phrase. Let's have a look at here. So when you use this kind of expressions, this differs. Definitely that means you are making inference, right? You are not only bringing something on board and quoting it. This differs shows that it's this author's inference, connecting many papers. So let's say we have 2 citations here. So that means he connected these 2 with the previous sentence that was mentioned. This means the previous sentence is connected to this one. This is the 5th sentence. The next sentence. In other words, this expression also shows it's the author's comment. So now what we're talking about in this step, after leads, we are talking about comments, where we mean that I've talked also in the first 2 classes, your voice versus your resource's voice. This should be clearly separated. Even if you cite, how you can separate your inference with the existing research materials that you're writing on board. Make sense? So when you're using, in other words, now this is a comment, it's not cited, so it's quite clear. It's the author, he or she or they are citing, making an inference. Any question, confusion so far? Please?
So if we have a paragraph that has 3 sentences and you're citing the 3rd sentence, how does the reader know that it's just the 3rd sentence you're citing? Maybe you have your own independent idea in the first 2 sentences, and then you have someone's idea in the 3rd sentence.
Very good point. Thank you for this question. So if I got your question correct, you mean when we are citing, whether in the form of footnote, bibliography, or in-text citation, we are writing author's name and page number, max. We do not write line number.
Yeah.
That's what you mean.
Not exactly. Like, let's say you're writing a passage, and then you have 3 sentences, but it's just the 3rd sentence you wish to cite. Following the methods you've explained, your citation will come after that 3rd sentence. But someone reading it might think that your citation is covering the first 2 sentences too.
Oh, so you mean when you're writing,
Yeah.
when you are writing it, your 3rd sentence could be a citation.
The 3rd sentence is what you want to cite. Like it's someone else's idea.
Right, you can do that.
How can you differ your first 2 sentences
From the 3rd one, then I'm expecting the first one would be the goal or the thesis statement that you want to do. The second, you are summarizing, just as we talked about a while ago. You're summarizing all the research materials that we will deal today in this paper. The third, you started citing. Make sense? It's clear now?
Yeah. For example, maybe in the passage we're looking at, I can show you an example.
Yeah, sure. For instance.
The first one.
Yeah, so let's say here we have this in 2 sentences. It could be 1 sentence. Assume that it is a 1 sentence. We can rewrite this in 1 sentence as well, right? So this is the goal we have, the first. The second, let's say this is not the third, this is the second one then, where we have a summary of what is coming ahead. Make sense? And the next, you start citing.
So what if the first one, the acoustic environment content being sound,
Is a citation?
Yeah, what if it's a citation? Or can you say that this is your own inference from the citations you're making?
I understand your point, what you're trying to say. So can we start a section with a citation or not?
Or,
That's what.
Yeah, if this is common knowledge, maybe cheetahs are the fastest animals on earth. Maybe everyone knows it. But if you got that information from maybe an encyclopedia or something, do you also cite that? Or how do you distinguish general knowledge from things that you maybe read somewhere?
So the point is, I have rarely seen that I'll start something with a citation in a research paper, because I'll look into your samples as well. All of you have provided various disciplinary samples. In the introduction section, we situate the background first. And even a literature review, you start with the goal. So there is no way you can actually cite a particular thing in the beginning, the first sentence.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Let's say your background is not something that's generated.
But you read from somewhere?
Yeah. So doesn't that mean you should also cite that maybe?
I got your point. So let's say you read few things, that's your background.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now you are making a point and you start with that point. That's what my proposal would be. Do not start with whatever you have read, summarizing them and citing them. Create a unique conclusion kind of a thing, the goal. And then you start citing if you need to cite about the background even. Definitely the background is cited, by the way. When we talk about introduction, move 1, 2, 3, as we did in the last class, move 1 is actually the literature review section also. If you're not separating in literature review and introduction, that means your background is literature review. Make sense? Because move 2 is gap, that's yours. You found the gap. Move 3, your paper, the way your paper will fill up the gap. Move 1 is this, all these previous existing research. So move 1 actually, background is the existing research materials that you read, studied somewhere, some other works. You okay? Yeah? So background is definitely full of citations. Yeah, but we start with a statement of ours. So we were here providing comments. We were seeing how we can differ voices. Even if you're citing, how the language could establish what is my voice and what is other existing research voice. For instance, here we see a kind of I have highlighted, you can have a look, had similar reactions. You're connecting multiple research works, right? The differed, here we don't have citations because it's entirely the author's comment, making inferences. Look how many gaps we have here. Now all the gaps are not the research gaps, this author's research gap, because everything he cited, or she cited, or they cited, they're saying, this findings call into question Blake's theory. So that means there's something wrong or unclear or missing, right? So that's the language. So this is author's voice. This author who is citing all these sources. So that's how we understand it is a part of the commentary section. The final 2 sentences, these are final 2 sentences. So now it will overlap. I'm saying this is comment, as I mentioned earlier. Let me rewrite that. When we are talking about comments, the 4th step, 5th, 6th, and these are all part of the leads. The 3rd step that we talked about. Now they overlap. That's why it gets a little confused and chaotic in this section. So you're not only providing comments, you're also doing this. For instance, let me get back to the first slide. So we are providing comments as well as summarizing things or expanding things or illustrating things, as well as sentence 18 and 19, if you look, that's the main research question. And that's also a comment. We cannot say the main research gap is not a comment. Make sense? So whenever I'm saying the 4th step is comment, that is actually continued or good until the end. Because the final comment is this, unique conclusion gap. For instance, the final comment is the last 2 sentences. Thus, the frequency of a sound may somewhat less important, blah, blah, blah. It remains unclear. Now we got it, which gap you're talking about, right? And suggesting need for some more research. So that's how this particular passage ended. This is also comment. But this is the last step as well. Why I'm mentioning it again and again? Because it's not like 3rd step done, gone. Now we're moving to 4th step, no connection with the 3rd. That's not how literature review works. The comment will include 4, 5, 6, all steps blended. Any confusion so far? We can move. For instance, again, when I'm talking about the 5th step, how do we see summarizing or explanation, or example or illustration. For instance, that's a very easy, direct reference, linguistic reference. That means it's a reference. It's an example. Now, example could be yours as well as a referred example. For example, Blake compared. So now you're bringing someone also to establish your idea that you established in the previous sentence possibly. So it's not like example should be your own only. It could be a reference as well. Make sense? So we see here what Blake did. And it's kind of like a summary. Something that he did, we are not bringing the whole thing here. Only a particular thing you're bringing on board to connect with your inquiry, whatever you're inquiring. You're not bringing down the whole paper, what the paper is about. Make sense? The next, what Blake concluded, one sentence, right? So these are all examples, or we can also say explanations or summarization. Now someone else, McDermott and House explored. So we are seeing the fifth step, which is either you're summarizing someone or you're explaining a topic by bringing other resources. Another reference. Cox found that. Now, here it's an example. Why? Because this particular reference is talking about not any scraping sound, but fingernails on a blackboard. That's particular example it's talking about, right? So when you're giving examples, you're also bringing references of other research works. Any confusion, questions so far? So this is how the comment section is getting extended with either summarizing or explaining or illustrating. Make sense? Or giving examples. And the way we end our commentary or synthesizing or making inferences is when we conclude with the research question that this paper should focus, or where actually the next chapters should lead to. So with this particular thing, we can expect further research on something else. Why everyone talked about only scraping sounds while talking about acoustic unpleasant sound. Only one category has been picked up, right? So that's the gap this author is trying to mention, perhaps. All good? Do we get the 6 steps? Now, if I, let's say, tell you to find these 6 steps in your submitted paper, not your own paper, but someone else, would you be able to find out the goal and then the leads, a summary statement and the leads, summary statement of whatever we are bringing on board and why, kind of like that, right? And then several leads. And among those several leads, we will have comments. And among those comments, we'll have either examples, illustrations, explanation of a topic, or summarization of a whole concept. And finally, research question mentioned. Now, when we are ending here, just let me highlight this particular part, because you all might say, I haven't started my lab experiments yet. Here also, it's the author is not suggesting what he's doing, suggesting what has been missed. Maybe the author also didn't have the lab experiments, or his own paper is on process, right? The way it ends. So it's however it remains unclear why certain sounds are almost universally perceived as this, suggesting the need for more research. It ends here. It doesn't mean the paper ended here. There could be a continuation where we'll know what could be the other way of evaluating unpleasant sounds. Right? He didn't talk about that, but that's okay. But at least we have this 6-step structure. So now we'll try to find out whatever we have discussed and talked, and if you have questions, we'll again share with the class. You can ask me as well in Canvas. Now, if you haven't submitted one, that's the problem. You will not see any other's paper, if I'm not wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. In Canvas, if you go, automatically it should show you someone's paper. Is it showing? And if you comment, you'll be anonymous. So feel free to write whatever you want, but be gentle and nice. Now, if you haven't submitted, then I have to share a particular submission with you. You'll not get it automatically. You know what I mean? Canvas, this particular task is assigned as a peer review task, which means everyone gets something at random, not your group members. You will get one paper to review if you have submitted. I'll give you one. Just a second, let me see if everyone got one or not. All the others except Yelin. You all got one? Yeah? Now take time and these 6 steps. Try to locate these 6 steps and write a comment that where do you find the goal? And if you think there is no illustration or examples or explanations, you can mention that. Whatever comes in your mind after listening to this discussion and example today, based on this, you can comment on your PS paper. Any confusion about the instruction? You got it? Okay, now how should I help you? Let's see. There's one way. Eileen, can you submit your thesis statement again? You just have to submit something to get someone's paper. You know what I mean? Then Canvas will automatically show you someone's paper. Now, if I submit one paper to you, particularly if I provide one, then it might overlap with others. I have to ask everyone which one you got. Because I don't want your paper to overlap with others. You can submit anything. Just submit the thesis statement, and then you get one. And by today, as you wanted to submit the introduction of the review section, the first draft, it is multiple submittable section. You can resubmit, but deleting the thesis statement later today. Good? Have you submitted yours? Can you go to discussion? How did you guys get that? Perfect. You received an email. You received something in your email. Yeah, if you have submitted. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. So let's go to the assignment. Because maybe the date has passed. I mean, the deadline has passed. I don't know. Let's see. Let me read this from here. Just asking, can you all see whom are you, the others, I'm talking to the others. Can you see whose assignment are you reviewing? May I ask? You don't have a name, okay. You have a name? Okay, okay.
I don't find it either.
You don't have a name on it?
No, I don't get the others.
You didn't get any? I mean, you got someone's, right?
No.
Unassigned. Okay. You submitted, right? Yeah. Oh, you submitted today just before the class?
Yeah.
Yeah, got it. I'll do that, no worries. Ellen, I have shared with you one article. Let's see if you, let me know if you get that or not. And which you have. Yeah, if you guys refresh, you should also get one, yeah? Cool.
Refresh here.
How did you get it?
Reload your browser.
I mean, yeah, just reload the browser. Hi. Yeah, this is the one.
Oh, okay. This one. Oh, I see.
Is it yours? No, that's someone else.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, there are a few comments in Zoom that they need to be assigned as well. Shravan and Akshay. Okay.
Are you supposed to add suggestions to the file, or is it a PDF file?
Where do you want to submit? Can you do that here in PDF? No. Then you go back to Canvas. I would request all of you to write in that same pattern, like 6 steps. Step 1, goal, talk about the goal. Step 2, talk about the found research material summary statement. Step 3, all good? That's all. Just following the slide. Should I take you guys to the slide?
So write those things in comment.
Yes, comment, correct. Yes, just follow this same format of command. Okay? Then it'll be easy for me what you're talking about. I can easily get it. Our tomorrow's class is on grammar, just letting you all know. It's complete basic, all the grammar rules and formats and resources. And it's also uploaded, everything is uploaded in Canvas as well. We'll discuss in class, we'll practice something. If you have any particular question, that's why I'm telling you all earlier. Some might have exact particular question, like I want to focus on this part of the grammar. If that's part of the slide tomorrow, that's okay. If it's not, then I can share things with you. Because grammar is a vast topic. So I might not be able to include everything in one grammar class. No?
What we're supposed to do there, like if we go to Go, get comments, Go was clearly defined. What you expect here is
Yeah, just these 6 comments.
yeah, so like under Go, get comments, Go was clearly defined.
Yeah. If it's all good, you can also write that. Yeah. And mention where did you find it. That's best. The best feedback is not only criticizing but or praising, but also mentioning this is where I find the goal. No, the author has definitely found research materials before they begin writing, right? So they are mentioning what kind of materials I'm going to use are present right now. It's kind of like a summary statement of your found research materials. If they don't have it, you can mention it. It's not what you are finding, what they have found. Should I show you a sample from here? For instance, the second step is in this slide. So the first is goal. Then what we get, no citation, but we are talking about, now we will talk about scrapping sounds ahead. This is the category of sounds we will talk about. Right, so it's giving you, all these have investigated this. Now what all this is, that we'll talk in different leads. Lead 1, lead 2, lead 3. That's how the author will lead us. let me know if you all are done. Are we done? No? Just to understand the scenario, 10 more minutes or 15 more minutes? How much time we might need? 10? You all agree with that? Yes, 10? Cool. I haven't checked the student view section, so I'm asking, the add comment section is too short, it's a small box, it's difficult to write there.
That's fine.
Is it, you guys are comfortable writing there? That's what I'm asking. I can create a separate big zone also if you want to comment, or it's okay, where you're commenting, it's okay?
You don't need expand it. That's
Okay, then if you want, no, I cannot say if you want, then I have to say everyone to shift to one zone. I cannot have separate comments.
I think it doesn't mean you can expand here. You don't need to change the other one. You can make it larger.
Okay,
Then it's not a small box.
oh, gotcha.
Yeah, you can keep that.
Oh, you have to stretch it, I mean, yeah, you can,
Yeah, you have to stretch it.
gotcha. Can you stretch that? This one? Yes. Right, good, oh, cool, yeah, otherwise, yeah, it's, the small one is difficult to see. Error, actually. Yeah, thank you. Cool. Omkar, you also didn't get one, right?
No.
Because you didn't submit it.
No, I am not submitting.
You can submit something so that you get one. You can submit whatever you write, you know?
Okay.
Hi, hello, how are you doing? That's also a submission. I mean, you can submit a thesis statement, the previous thesis statement, or anything. If you submit, then you'll get one. You know, that's how it works, yeah. Then you can resubmit. If you want to submit the final,
Oh, is it? Okay.
yeah, you can resubmit always, yeah. Later in the day, tonight, tomorrow, you can resubmit things.
In the screen, can you move the chat box to the left a little bit?
Oh, sorry.
didn't, you can comment on it. That's not part of today's thing. That's if someone missed the instruction, that's a different thing. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. I mean, then actually I should have been clear in the instruction. Then I cannot say this to students. You know what I mean? I meant in both ways. You can start with that as the first two sentences, which will not make sense right now. I know. I meant a separate section with the thesis statement, where you'll write the thesis statement, and then you will start your introduction, so that I know what the goal is. Yeah, I didn't mean this. That's true. That's right, you are. I meant to separate the thesis statement, but you keep it in the beginning for students' understanding and for your peers' understanding that what it is about. Yeah, because I'm not from the discipline. So when I know the thesis statement, it's easy for me to give the feedback when I read your introduction. You know what I mean? That's why I need the thesis statement in the beginning. But we do not put the thesis statement in this beginning of our writing. When we submit a final paper or we write an article, we submit to a journal, we write an essay to publish. We don't put the thesis statement in the beginning like that. In the introduction. Yeah. In abstract, yes. We write that in abstract. And we mentioned that in move 3, introduction. In the end of the introduction, we include that thesis statement or purpose statement. This paper aims to address or the way you want to fill up the gap. 10 minutes almost done. Shall we wait a few more minutes, or you all are done? Done? Those who are done, we can discuss, and those who are still doing it, it's fine, you can do it. It's just a simple discussion. I just wanted to have an idea. I haven't read everyone's submission yet, because not everyone submitted by yesterday or today early morning. People might have submitted just before the class. That's fine, no worries. So just wanted to know from all of you, so what's your experiences one by one, if you can share, when you were reading those, and if you could connect the 6 points, or if there's a gap, or if you have any confusion, anything, just place on board. So what do you think when you're reading your peers' works? You can start from me.
It's for me. It's easy to find the goal and the unique conclusion, but I think it's really hard to find a summary of all sources before they expand the
Yes,
sources.
sources.
Do the citations.
Okay, so we can say that the step 2 is missing, right?
Yeah.
Or not, let's not say missing, it was difficult for you to identify or locate that within that context. So step 2, which was this, right?
Yeah, and it's I can even find the lead of the study, but then there's comments missing there, and then directly go to another citation. So from citation to citation, and it's hard to locate
Comments.
the comments.
Or
between-
connection, you mean, between
Yeah,
those
connection.
citations? Because it's not like we cannot cite 2-3 research works or 2-3 references at a time. We can do that. But if they're connected,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Yeah. If they're connected, you can even cite multiple and then comment. Depends on the connection. It depends on the context. So the second point you pointed out is this. So first point is step 2 is could be missing. The second is comments and connection. So connection between leads, you mean,
Yeah.
or among, let's say, multiple leads. Connection among the leads, right? And anything else?
The last point is the step 5.
This one?
Yeah, before we draw the conclusion,
Yeah.
I really cannot find the summarizing examples and illustrations.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
My question to you: could you able to identify the author's voice versus the research referred voices? Was it clear which one is the author's voice and which one is, or which ones are the author is referring to previous work? The 2 voices were clear?
I don't think I understand the author's comments on those studies, but I can clearly tell the author's goal of this study.
Gotcha. Yeah, so this is, the goal part is quite clear. Yeah, but those parts could be a little incomprehensible to you. That's cool, thank you. Anyone else who would like to share? Yeah, go ahead.
This was really good. I felt the
You read Nandis, right?
yes.
Yeah.
So the goal was clearly stated in the beginning, and the background was clearly stated. So the step 2 was the research material from research material.
Yeah.
That was also clearly there. The lead discussion was there. What I found was, like, if there's like lead 1, he also had a conclusion about that, and
Yeah.
then going to lead 2 and
Yeah. Yeah.
about, like,
That's comment, when you have a conclusion, which means, yeah,
So yeah,
it's quite well organized.
yeah. and
You had a
it's
happy
good
reading.
flow, yeah.
It's a good flow.
And I
Wow.
mean, this topic is very different from what I have, or
Yeah.
I know, but I clearly understood what it.
Makes sense, impressive. I wish you were here
Yeah.
to listen this beautiful comment. Thank you. What else? Anyone else would like to share something new? Do you want to say something? Or add something?
Or Katie, would you like to say nothing?
I also observed very nice flow.
Okay.
Maybe I expected some increments, but they are not necessary.
Okay.
But it was like very clear.
Oh, cool.
But it means,
Cool. Cool. Thank you. So now at least we can say we might have more confusion. The more we read, the more we can develop. So I would request whenever we read something, we should read in this way. The reason I designed this course in this way so that we can develop that vision, that sight. So now whenever we're reading, we're not getting knowledge, but also the structure, the way it is composed, the way those blocks are built. Yeah? And the more you see different articles, the more you'll get a clearer vision how the composition happens now. It's kind of like seeing the inner architectural blueprint design of writing. Yeah? Now let's get back to the most difficult part of synthesis. I mean, I won't say without this you cannot write a proper synthesis, you can. But as a duty, I'm sharing the advanced stage or advanced blueprint, how the best of the best writers you would see. If you see a most beautiful writing in research paper, if you have any one like that you idolize, you can read that and try to find out what I'm going to say now. So how that blueprint works. These 6 steps are basic, what we just discussed today and saw examples and we practice something. This is, we must all maintain. Now, even within this, so let's say that's the building, right? What we just did, we can say it's a building. Now, what I'm going to talk is bricks. So, which is a vast field, and the aesthetics of using those bricks, it's very, I would say, it could be very chaotic, could be very perspective. I mean, it would vary from paper to paper, person to person. So now we are in this slide called grounding, forwarding, and countering. So what is grounding, forwarding, and countering? We'll get to know that. Again, I'm repeating, even without knowing grounding, forwarding, countering, you can write a synthesis. Yet, I'm letting you all know so that now you'll be more precise and conscious when you'll be composing your own paper. Grounding happens in 4 ways. Not all 4 of them are included always. Any one of them or all of them. So let me write that first. We have, there could be definition. Or it's also called, let's write in the verb format, define. I'm writing everything in ing form. Framing. Illustrating. Authorizing. It's a different theory, by the way, of the rhetoric move of writing, synthesis. So don't confuse with the previous one that we did. That was one model, a simpler model. Now I'm diving deep into an advanced model. Grounding means how I am presenting my claim, situating it. Context. I'm preparing the context for my claim. Let's say that sentence. So if I have to define the word grounding, then I would say grounding is a rhetorical move, the way we spell rhetoric, rhetorical move of academic writing, which consists any one or 4 of these features with the purpose of setting up the context for the claim to be addressed. We got it? Yeah? So that's grounding. That means you're setting up the context for your claim with any one or 4 of these features. So let's see how it goes. Now, not in all samples, the 4 could be separate, not necessary. The 4 could overlap with each other. Okay? Okay, before getting into these examples, let me go through the whole basic structure first. When you present the context, that claim that you are going to present, the next step is forwarding, which means, and it goes, by the way, the difficulty why I'm saying this is an advanced one, it's not one after the other. it goes like this. So let's say grounding, forwarding, grounding, forwarding. It goes like this. So it goes in a loop. We'll see the sample how it goes in a loop. Forwarding means that happens in 3 ways. Forwarding means we borrow something. It's pretty easy. Grounding a little bit difficult, might take a little time for us to understand how it happens. Forwarding you can easily identify. You're borrowing someone. Some words, some verses, someone's comment, someone's work, okay? You're extending it. Borrowing, extending, and finally synthesizing. Which is very easy to identify. Synthesizing means making inference. Extending means you are using such vocabulary while borrowing that is leading to the synthesis, because you're not stopping there. You are extending that work and you are trying to put it in the context of yours. That's why forwarding and grounding goes in a loop. Because the purpose of this forwarding is actually, again, to set your grounds. Right? We'll see examples, but so far whatever I've said, anything very incomprehensible to understand? Theoretically, we are getting the basic of it. So the way the synthesis moves, grounding first, then forwarding. How each features work, we'll see that in samples. Finally, it could be there or not. Sometimes it is there, sometimes it is not. Countering. You are either this side, that side, or you can uncover values. So it happens in 2 ways. You have a counter argument, or you are uncovering values. It's not a counter. Uncovering values is you presented something, and you're uncovering something from that. So countering, not necessarily will always be there. It's not like I'm always refuting with my previous works, but there could be. Particularly in this sample that we just studied in the book, page 235 in perusal, the sample that we did today, we have countering there. There are many times author countered. Now that happened, then I have to change this loop. It's like GFC, because it goes in a loop. You are bringing Blake and you're countering Blake, and then moving to someone else, and then countering that, right? You're providing a comment every now and then whenever you're bringing someone, borrowing someone. And why you are countering? In order to reach to your grounds, to reach to your claim. You have a context that you placed in the beginning. Then you started borrowing people, extending those things, synthesizing, and after each synthesis, it leads to your grounds. After each countering, so it goes in a loop, grounding, forwarding, and countering. So far, what I said in a basic way, all good? Now let's have a look at a few examples. So what I just said is defined in this slide. Let's get to the example part. For this particular sample, I must mention that defining and framing can be same thing sometimes. As I said, now we'll look into these examples. The examples of grounding. Okay? Yeah? And when you're talking about examples of grounding, let me use a different marker. We have 4 features, as I said. We perhaps have a look at this. There could be a shared definition. There could be several leads or frames of key concepts, the way you're framing the topic. Each framing might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 100 examples. You're illustrating those key concepts. Okay? Finally, you're authorizing, because you are extracting the final juice out of that whole fruit. So that's authorizing what you want to establish. That's the end of grounding. And when you are authorizing, that means you are getting nearer to your claim. Now, in order to have this whole process, it's not like we finish this and then we move to this. That's the only chaotic zone. Within this process, we actually borrow things. We do not authorize without borrowing. So let's get back to these examples. We could have defining elements in the paper, in the grounding part, in the contextual part. Not necessarily every paper, every discipline might have it. But definitely, if you don't have it, then you must have framing. You will be framing key concepts. Because based on those key concepts or leads, you're illustrating. And then you're authorizing. So it's a different model than what we just saw a while ago. That was a 6-step model. That also included all these things, by the way, what we just did. Now I'm showing a different model because you might see samples or other papers in this advanced composed state. Now let's have a look at the examples of the same sample that we studied today. So defining. So you're sharing a shared definition for a key concept. So in this paper, I would say defining and framing overlap because it's not defining particular technological or scientific terms. It's on a key concept. The concept is scrapping sounds, right? So that's the category they're talking about. So this is the first thing we got to know. So what the key concept is in sentence 3. In sentence 6, we can, if you have per user open, and also you can see the sentence here, 2 papers are cited here. So it's a shared definition. It's not an individual's resource mentioned. We can see in the sentence 6, 2 papers, and even in sentence 3, maybe 3 papers, right? Here we see 3 citations in sentence 3. So it's kind of a shared concept being presented. Make sense? So we can say it's a shared definition or you're framing a key concept. Sentence 10 as well. Another resource paper was mentioned, but here we see in a different structure, like it is the subject. In the earlier sentence, the subject was not the person. In sentence 10, we see the subject as the person or the persons. Now, after this, if I move to the framing part, how framing and defining work well together, how we get claims in every shared definition we presented. So now I'm talking about whenever we are presenting a shared definition, are you trying to frame something? That's the question, right? What are you trying to frame? I'm bringing this and that, but why? Am I making sense, the question that I'm asking? So let's see, framing answers that. Why I have brought this on plate. Why I have brought this shared definition on plate. So what the framing answers, negative reaction to the sound could mainly be found in this. So this is you're trying to frame. Studies of scrapping sounds have shown that. Another frame, this differs, which we also see, which we have seen just in the previous example, in the 6 steps. This is also framing. Why certain frequencies create unpleasant quality or unpleasant sounds that people perceive as unpleasant. Sentence 8, again. So whenever we see framing, we see a comment. Have we seen that? The difference between defining and framing is, in the defining examples, I don't think we saw comments of the author, right? If I'm not wrong, yeah. So sentence 3, we see defining elements. Sentence 6, we see defining elements. And then 10, we see defining elements. But when we see framing, we see such vocabulary like, for instance, negative reaction. So now you're framing deeper. You all going there? Yeah? Sentence 5, this differs. So that's also called framing. So in future, you have a question? No. So in future, if you get comments like, let's say your reviewer or professor wrote to you, and say if your professor writes, your framing is unclear, then you know what to work on. All good? In our research life, we will get plenty of suggestions and feedback and whatever we submit whenever we present any conference. So whenever we get such comments, now we know what to work on. All good? Again, both humans and tamarins had similar reactions, negative reactions, clearly preferred. So we see hedging and boosting also. Here we see boosting. clearly preferred. So that's framing, because you're not only borrowing, but you're framing certain points and comments of yours. It's not, you're extending actually the shared definition. That's why I say it goes in loop. It overlaps. Yeah, you're defining by, how you're defining? By borrowing, definitely. And how you're framing? By extending, definitely. Making sense? How these two, grounding and forwarding, are connected? Because you cannot frame your key concept without the extension of the borrowed thing. And when you clear your, when you make an inference after illustration or example, that means you're authorizing your final claim. We'll get there, where we see that. So let's see illustration example, which is very clear. I also shown that in the earlier example. For instance, is an example. This is also an example. In other words, humans still have the same response mechanism as monkeys. This is not cited. So we see two different examples. One example where Blake's direct citation we can see. Another example where it's not cited, but it's author's comments as an example based on all this context. Another example, it's also from a citation. Cox found something that is used as an example. So that's also illustration. So we can see, to establish the grounds of your claim, when you're talking about your context, you define something, a shared definition, you deep down to frame the key concepts, and after that you provide some examples, and finally you lend authority to your claim that you want to establish. For instance, in the sentence 18 and 19, I would say authorizing statements. Because based on your previous 17 statements, this 18-19 can be said, okay, now the frequency of sound is this is how previous researchers work, and this is the problem or gap we have. Are we good about grounding? Yeah? Any question, confusion? Let's move to forwarding. You can have questions later as well. Borrowing, extending, and synthesizing, which is pretty clear, I guess. I hope this is easier than the previous one. Let's see. Let's open per user. So that we can talk in a bigger context like this. Sentence 235. So my question to you, because forwarding is quite easier, so I'll ask, so let's say borrowing is cited, but how we understand it is extended? Sentence 9. Have a look at sentence 9. So, do you have any confusion if I say sentence 9? In other words, humans still have the same response. It is an extension of the previously borrowed argument. Do you all agree? This is an extension, because it's not also cited, and it's an extension of the previous arguments. The next, sentence 11, I'm saying this is also an extension of the borrowed argument. Both humans and tamarins had similar reactions. Previously, you have explained the human's condition, and then tamarin's condition, and then this is an extension of that argument. We all agree, sentence 11. This is 11. Make sense? Yeah? And finally, synthesizing. 12 and 13, they are inferences. Synthesizing is full of inference. Sentence 12, however, they differed this. 13, we see boasting, clearly preferred what humans clearly preferred. Make sense? Yeah? Now let's see the final countering, which is quite visible here. When we have countering, phrases like, let's say, unlike studies exploring a biological basis of perceptions, Now you're bringing cogs to counter the previous arguments. Countering not only means you're counter to the previous arguments. You're bringing someone, right? Unlike previous studies, cogs proposed, so you're bringing cogs to counter the previous studies. That's also countering. All good? So that's why I said it goes in loop. So you forward, you ground, you use counter, and then you go back here, and you end here, that's for sure. But in between, we have all these 3 loop stages that goes in a roller coaster. And we can never say sentence 1 would be this, and 2 would be that, and 3 would be that. It can go in a chaotic way. It's our perception we have to identify whenever we read. That how can we identify whenever framing is happening, whenever extension is happening, when we are synthesizing. Yeah?